Wise Child by Monica Furlong, Chapter 13, Maeve's Daughter. The girl showed me to my chamber, which was very large. There were long tapestries of hunting scenes that moved in the wind, as did the silk covers of the big bed. There was a fire in the grate set against the wall, not in the middle as I was used to. The room was not so much pretty as grand. But what caught my eye at once was that a dress of yellow silk was laid out on the bed, with shoes to match it lying on the floor. "Is it for me?" I asked. The girl nodded. She went into a room adjoining the chamber and brought a bowl of rose water and a cloth. A little shyly under her gaze, I slipped off my smock and mantle and washed my face and hands. Since she obviously expected to wash my feet and legs, I let her do so. She helped me into the yellow dress with its matching stockings and shoes. Then she brushed my hair until it shone. Pausing down the stairs, I looked in the mirror and scarcely recognized myself. I had never been so fine.
"Well,"
said Maeve when she saw me,
"so you can look pretty."
I sat at her right hand at dinner, and she heaped my plate with delicious food, venison, fowl, many vegetables. I was very hungry after my long day in the open air, and though I had always eaten well at Juniper's house, I had never seen such food. In a long mirror on the wall I could see Maeve and myself, orange and yellow, sitting at the long table, with Aidan, the young man I had seen in the hall on Maeve's left. He seemed nice, but I was now too tired to stay awake, and as soon as I had eaten I began to yawn and longed to close my eyes. Maeve excused me and sent me to bed. The same girl, still apparently terrified, helped me off with the yellow dress and hung it in a closet, which I could see over her shoulder was full of other lovely dresses. She unfolded a thin sleeping gown and slipped it over my head. I could not wait to get between the sheets and close my eyes. The shifting of the fire disturbed me a little at first, then the cry of a night owl, then the wail of a cat. The shifting of the tapestries and the wind troubled me, and the bed felt big and strange. Then, tired as I was, I knew that I could not go to sleep, but for want of anything better to do, I lay with my eyes closed. I thought of Juniper, and wondered what she was feeling tonight with my nest empty. I missed her, but pushed the thought away from me with the thought that tomorrow I would not have to get up early and milk the cow, would not have to sweep or wash or shred herbs or grind meal, nor would I have to learn long boring things by heart, nor translate impossible bits of Latin. I was sorry to be unkind to Juniper, but really it was her own fault. Then I thought I heard the door open quietly. Surreptitiously I opened my eyes just a fraction. At first I could not see or hear anything, but then, between me and the fire, I made out the figure of Maeve in her orange dress. She stood quite still for several minutes looking at me while I pretended to be asleep. Then she turned softly and went out again. Next morning I slept late, and when I awoke I enjoyed all the luxury of life in Maeve's house. The girl brought me delicious breakfast in bed. "What's your name?" I asked her. "Jeanne," she said in a half-whisper. "Are you afraid of me?" I asked directly. I had not lived with Juniper all these months without picking up some of her habits. Jeanne hung her head. "A bit," she said. "Why, I'll not hurt you." Jeanne did not reply, but I knew, as if she had spoken, that it was Maeve whom she feared. "Don't be afraid. We'll have good times together. I'm glad you're my age." She smiled a tiny smile, and I smiled back at her. Soon she was sitting on the bed beside me, eating bread and honey. Later she helped me to get dressed. I went downstairs. There was no sign of Maeve, nor anyone else. I sat for a bit in front of the fire until I got bored. Then I set off to explore some of the rooms, the mastiff following suspiciously at my heels. Beyond the hall was the big dining room we sat at in the previous night, and beyond that a big room with splendid carpets, mirrors, and embroidered chairs. When I went through the door at the end of that room, I found myself in a little dark passage with rooms opening off it. One of the rooms was a tiny sitting room that had Maeve's rose smell about it. Next door to that was a room with shelves holding bottles, a table with knives and flasks upon it, and another shelf with books. At first I felt quite at home in this room, because there were bunches of herbs in it hanging up to dry, filling the air with a strong wild smell. Looking closely at some of the herbs, I noticed with surprise that they were belladonna and wolfsbane. There was also a strange-looking root shaped like a man. I had never seen a mandrake root, but I guessed that was what I was looking at. On the floor were cages with rats and rabbits imprisoned in them, and some of them were dead. They were not a good sight, and I turned away in disgust. Then it seemed to me that the room had taken on a strange animal smell, only half hidden by the smell of the herbs, and I wanted to get away from it. Opening out of it was another room containing only a loom, about the size of Juniper's loom. Like Juniper's loom, it was strung with many colours, and like hers it reminded me of something that I could not quite remember. Unlike hers, however, it left me with a troubled feeling, as if I was afraid or anxious or sad, and as this was how the world was, dreadful and hopeless, suddenly it came to me that their weaving changed how things were, making them joyful or bitter. I wandered back through the passage, the big room, the dining room, and into the hall. Still there was nobody about. I looked out the window, but it was sleeting, so I could not go out. It was nearly lunchtime before Maeve appeared, yawning.
Did you sleep well, my darling?
She inquired. Not very, I said. There were a lot of noises.
This afternoon will be too cold to ride, she said, so we will have to go out in the wagon, you and I.
At first it was very exciting trundling along the road in the warm wagon. There were skins full of hot water under our feet, and the sleet streaked diagonally past the windows seemed to make our space all the more cosy. It was fun to see the fields and hedges and houses moving past. How poor the people are here, I remarked at one point. People were ploughing despite the sleet, although the ground seemed too wet to work, and there was a group of ragged children walking along the road, staggering under an enormous tree trunk.
They do nothing but complain,
Maeve said with contempt. Privately, I thought rags and hunger were enough to make anyone complain. Far out in the country, we stopped at a pitiful cottage.
Stay here,
she ordered me. She was gone for about 20 minutes, and when she came out again, her eyes flashed with anger. What's the matter? I asked, a little frightened.
I've just ordered them to keep off my land, to teach the other tenants a lesson. Alpin has complained about the state of his roof.
Oh, poor people, I said. Won't they have anywhere to live?
Quite the little Christian, aren't we? She said.
I was silent. If Maeve owned all this land, then the poverty of all these people might be her fault. She soon took my mind off this by beginning to talk about Juniper.
What did she think she was going to do with you? Turn you into a witch?
Into a door? I stopped, but too late.
Adore him? So she has thought of it?
Not exactly thought of it. She just thought that I was the sort of person who might become one.
And will you?
I don't think so. It's such terribly hard work. You have to learn a lot of things about herbs and stars and stuff. Latin too. I get fed up with all that. Even as I said it, though, I had a memory of Juniper singing in the dairy in the early mornings, and I suddenly wanted to be back with her.
There are other kinds of spells.
Did Maeve really say that? Or did I just imagine she had said it? As soon as I heard it, I was no longer quite sure. As if she had expected some response that I did not give, Maeve went on.
Anyway, the first thing is to have a lovely time. Try on your pretty dresses. Ride your pony.
Pony? I interrupted her.
Yes, it was too late to look at him today. Read your books. Enjoy yourself.
Jeanne is nice, I said.
Jeanne? Jeanne is just a servant.
But she is nice to talk to, I said obstinately.
If that is your taste, I suppose,
Maeve said scornfully, pulling her furs more closely about her. Even when she was scornful, she did look very beautiful.
Will I learn anything? I asked. I will teach you what I know, said Maeve with an undercurrent of meaning that I did not understand. I did not like to pursue it further. I got down from the wagon feeling uneasy and went straight to the stable. There was my beautiful pony with his light coat and white tail. He turned at once as I entered and nuzzled me affectionately, As if he knew me, it occurred to me that Maeve had not kissed or touched me all day. Promising to come back and see the pony the next morning, I went indoors. I tried on all my dresses, one after another, and scarcely knew which one I liked the best. I chose a deep blue velvet to wear that evening. Then I looked at the books. I had never actually owned a book of my own before. Jeanne came in to make up the fire, and I persuaded her to stay and play a game of brand up with me. I don't know how, she said. I'll soon teach you. I used to play sometimes with Coleman. I began to tell her who Coleman was and about my cousins, and how Coleman had come to see me at Juniper's house, and about the games we played in the barn. I could see that she loved to hear about it all. How could you leave it? She said at last. In bed that night I longed for Juniper more than ever. I thought that by now she would really mind that I was gone, and wish that she had not worked me so hard when I was there. The house was going to take a lot of getting used to. This house was going to take a lot of getting used to. Just before I dropped off to sleep, I was once again aware of the sound of the door opening and Maeve entering the room. As before, she stood and looked at me while I pretended to be asleep. It was very odd, and we will pause there.